Hello, and welcome to Shatter Our Souls with Novaria. Today is the finale of the Mario Kart All Cup Tour Itemless run. Now, let's be honest and clear about this. This is both a run of just playing the game, seeing how it goes. No items can be used intentionally, and that's about it for the bulk of the rules. Now, the reason that they're starting in Dry Desert is because it is the course that I personally believe to be the weakest in Mario Kart Double Dash. And the reason why it is the weakest in my mind actually comes from a couple different mentalities. The first being that it is a relatively simplistic track. It is, for lack of better terms, a square. And this is great. It could be a good track. But it being a very notably just a square with only two notable obstacles for the entire track, mixed with a rather, I don't want to call it a dull color palette, but it's a color palette that doesn't exactly suit Mario Kart. In the form of the browns, oranges, etc., it's a very type of track. It's not one that I ever really had the let's go play this track today mentality. And so for me, Mario Kart Double Dash's Dry Desert is the weakest of the courses in this game. Now, note, this is not me saying it is the weakest course of all time. I believe that there are some that come in later games that do a not so good job at representing what they're aiming to do. This one just happens to be the weakest in this set of courses, and that's saying something because this is a very phenomenal set of courses in Mario Kart history. Double Dash, for any flaws it may have, is absolutely phenomenal when it comes to actually having a good track list. Coming up in 15th place, we have Dino Jungle. Dino Jungle is a figure 8 style track, but unlike the later track that'll come up here, the Luigi Circuit figure 8 track, this one it has a blue shell this early? Wow. As I was saying, this one has a lot of push and pull to it. It wants to be a high-end, end-of-the-game type track, and you can tell because you have the water geysers, you have large segments of the track without guardrails, you have a dinosaur in the middle of the center of the main highway, if you will. And this is great. This all works to its favor. This is all to its benefit. But the problem is that with one of the most energy and imagination inspiring ideas you could have for a track, this is not what I was expecting. And I personally put it in 15th place because while it is probably a better track than some of the next ones coming up, it's one that I put low because of the potential of what they were working with. And that's kind of a shame when you get down to it, because it's one that always, I feel like it doesn't do as well as the next couple of tracks because it had a chance to do something more with it. Anywho, one thing I do have to admit and like about this track is that the fact that some of the obstacles are right at the end really showcases that you have to be on your toes the entire round. You can't just slack off for the last bit and say, okay, cool, that's that, we're done. No, you actually have to take your time, pay attention to what you're aiming for and what your outcome or expected outcome is going to be. And I think that's honestly a fantastic thing to mention and a fantastic part about this track. Because most tracks, their last obstacle, it ends like 6 seconds before the end, and it's like, yeah, okay, it had potential. it could have ended up being what it was, or something more. It just didn't. Anywho, that's all I have to say on that. Coming up next, we have Baby Park. Now, I have ragged on this track a number of times, especially as far as an itemless run goes. And I want to be very abundantly clear about this. Baby Park is not a bad track. Quite the opposite, it is a frantic, chaotic type of track, but it is not a bad track. Frantic, chaotic tracks end up being better in the multiplayer scene. Something... It didn't go for me at all? What? Sorry. Frantic multiplayer tracks like this are great in certain instances. This is a track that did really well in Double Dash and hasn't felt the same since. And a lot of people have asked the question as to why. And I think the answer comes down to how its perception is affected by the item play in various games. A lot of the new games, the items end up stopping the players dead in their tracks, and that's it. There's nothing more to be done. But for some tracks, the item play ends up being helpful to it more than a hindrance. This is one where it often felt more of a helpful and made it more interesting. Because the chaos of having 4 players throwing items at each other endlessly, or up to 8, made it all the better. Anywho, coming in 13th, we have Mushroom City. Mushroom City is the one track that I have a really hard time placing. It's technically a figure 8 track, like Dino Dino Jungle and a Luigi Circuit. But this one has traffic involved. Now, I mentioned, I think last time, that I had found that I got lost and mixed up in here all the time when I played this track. Partially just due to the fact that the lefts and rights in the multipath region end up giving me kind of a headache over where I actually am in this whole situation. So there is that's kind of going for them in this circumstance. But more than that, this is a track that ends up not really... Its identity is in its traffic, it's in the nightlife, it's in the energy of the region. But to me, it's always felt kind of meh. It plays on what it does and what it aims for incredibly well, but it still lacks that one identifier that really sets it apart. Mind you, this is coming from now played the game for 2 decades version of me. Older, younger me, or whatever you like to talk about it, would probably have this at a slightly higher spot because of the chaos of the various cars, trucks, buses, you name it. So take what I say here with a grain of salt, that opinions have a tendency to change over time. My current opinion is this isn't one of my favorites, but who knows? This may maintain or may not. And with all that being said, I gotta say, this is turning out to have a lot of blue shells today. But rather high score overall with how things are going. Coming in at 12th place, we have Luigi Circuit. And Luigi Circuit is the course that I personally believe it did a lot right. And I'm not just referring to how it changes from one iteration of the run to another. The 50cc version differing from the 100 from the 150. Each version of this track changed ever so slightly to make it more dynamic, more usable, more interesting for all players. And this is great. This is something that Mario Kart could and should be doing more often. But Luigi's Circuit is a rather juiced up figure eight style circuit. You're noticing that's probably coming up a lot. What makes this one uniquely stand out has to do with how the traffic flows in this track. You have to go from one end of the loop to the other, effectively 4 times. It's a left turn, followed by a left turn, followed by a left turn. That's more or less what you're aiming for in a figure eight. The beautiful side about this one, however, I suppose it's not really a figure eight. It's more of a loop-de-loop. Anyways, point is that this one is designed with more of a baby park style item play in mind, where the center of each loop, that back and forth, ends up being a massive danger zone where items are flying one way to the next. Items are causing a conundrum, destroying everything left, right, and center. And that's absolutely the point, is that Mario Kart Double Dash was designed with more frantic item play in mind. Coming up next, we have Mario Circuit. And this is now 11th place. Mario Circuit is the course that is supposed to identify Mario in general. And this track is no exception. Now, aside from the fact that Mario, has one of the wider, more open-ended tracks with not very many hidden areas, not very many even shortcuts available, this one ends up being a mediocre track. Where it loses, or where it wins to Little Brother Luigi, in my opinion, comes from the complexity of the basic layout. Yes, it's a fairly simple layout, but you have some wide turns, you have some tight turns, you have some piranha plants, some Goombas, you even have yourself a chain chomp thrown in there. And to me, that makes it more difficult, but also more engaging than Luigi's Circuit is, especially on a itemless run. But that's the thing. I've played through this game in the last 6-ish months without throwing an item for the longest time. It's not exactly something that I can switch back and forth in my head very easily with. So, there we go. I ran into a piranha plant. I think I need to hand in my driver's license. Then again, I am a baby driving, so, maybe that's just how it's supposed to be. Anywho, Mario Circuit ends up fitting very nicely into 11th place because, to me, it's got just that kind of sweet spot where we're going from the... Luigi and Mario Circuit are that sweet spot where it starts flipping from the kind of courses to, yes, let's play this one. And I think that's a great place to be. Coming in at 10th place, we have Mushroom Bridge. Now, Mushroom Bridge and Mushroom City have much the same in terms of concerns that come up. A lot of the Mushroom Bridge is just a oversized loop, a lot of traffic. But what I think sets this one apart is A, the tunnels, B, the bridge itself, the number of unique speed boosts, panels, the number of cars available, and the number of shortcuts available. Now, as far as shortcuts go, to my recollection at this moment in time, there is at least 2 to 3 ways of traveling through this course that are different from the norm. One over the sand pit and the hill here, one over the top of the bridge that also ends up in an item, and you have the warp pipe shortcut directly after the starting line. And so what you end up with is a race where the solution, the perfect path, isn't exactly as set out for you or set in stone as the prior ones. This is an important distinction to make, because a lot of the earlier tracks that I have mentioned don't have much in the way of shortcuts, side paths, etc. And so you end up playing the same course every time regardless. And sometimes that's the point. Baby Park is very much evidence of that. But others, like Dino Dino Jungle, could stand to have more unique pathing throughout. Anyways, with Mushroom Bridge now complete, we move on to number 9, Yoshi's Island. Now, why number 9? And this is going to be the hardest one to justify, and I know I've got some keyboard people clickety-clacking right now. But hear me out. Yoshi's Island, or Yoshi Circuit, ends up being one of the intermediate tracks. It's not absurdly hard, has some fairly wide roads for most of it, good item locations, some blind turns, you've got yourself some piranha plants, you have a couple really good shortcuts that are absolutely satisfying to pull off. So where's the wrong? The reality is, it doesn't do anything wrong at all. But rather, this track ends up doing a lot right, just not... It doesn't sell the spectacle side that I mentioned last time, where some courses, like DK Mountain, Wario Coliseum, have a little bit of a cinematic flair to them as you're flying around those corners. The Yoshi Circuit doesn't have that for me. It has a lot of really good circuit-style play. I almost dodged a shock. Oh well. It has a lot of good circuit-style racing. But as far as incorporating everything that Mario Kart Double Dash has to offer, I don't really feel it reaches that pinnacle that we're aiming for. It gets close, but from here on, we're in the top half of all tracks. And there are so many fantastic tracks in Mario Kart Double Dash that honestly, this one being a little bit lower, on a personal opinion, to me is not the end of the world. Heh. Anyways, as we take our loop around the last half of Yoshi's Island, let's recap. We have Dry Desert at 16, Dino Jungle at 15, Baby Park at 14, Mushroom City at 13, Luigi Circuit at 12, Mario Circuit at 11, Mushroom Bridge at 10, and now Yoshi's Island, or Yoshi Circuit, at 9. And I think those are all fairly reasonable course placements. But another one I might get a little bit of flack for is number 8, Rainbow Road. Rainbow Road is the definition of spectacle over substance in my mind. You have a lot of okay regions of the track. It's designed with some odd choices, and I think that's a good thing to start with. You have a bunch of hairpin turns, straightaways, boost pads, loop-de-loops, cannons. It all adds up and makes for a rather spectacle-driven race. You have items that literally fall from the sky throughout the entirety of your race. And this is great. I have no complaints with the items falling from the sky. I have no complaints with the boost panels. My biggest complaint with this track comes from the fact that a lot of the race itself ends up falling into 2 straightaways. And you could say, okay, well, it's just 2 straightaways. But the thing is that the later Rainbow Roads, I think, taint my opinion of this one a lot. Because the ones I grew up loving were Mario Kart Wii, as well as Mario Kart 8's Rainbow Road. And Mario Kart Wii's Rainbow Road was probably my favorite with the twisting road. You had cannons, you had not flight paths, but it left a huge impression when you played. It ended up making you feel awestruck every time you picked up that controller. It felt satisfying to land every single trick on those wavy bridges near the pits of despair. And I just don't have the same satisfying approach to that shows up in this particular track. And therefore, that is why I'm justifying putting it in the top half, but not at the top placements of Mario Kart Double Dash. But let's look at what it does right. As I said, this is a spectacle track. You have all sorts of flying objects throwing items down at you, stars that fall on the track that give you a speed boost, that give you invincibility, on top of hairpin blind turns, and you name it. It is a very technical track outside of those one or two straightaways, which makes for a rather unique track as far as Mario Kart Double Dash is concerned. It is a fantastic, well thought out, well planned out track. Itemless, it doesn't change all that much. Generally, I find that itemless tracks, or playing at itemless, about half of them are tweaked. This one just isn't, because I always found that any items I did use flew off the edge because there's no guardrails. But that might just be me. Anywho, heading into the last cannon and subsequently the final turn of the Rainbow Road, you'll also be able to catch a glimpse of the final score of the All Cup Tour, which, spoiler warning, it was a success, and all of these courses were done in one run, just jumbled up to make the ranking system make a bit more sense. Anyways, with that in mind, we finished out with 152 points. And coming up next, we have Peach Beach at number 7. Peach Beach ends up being one of those tracks that, to me, makes sense to have this high, but for a lot of others, maybe not. The reason I want to mention Peach Beach as a high-ranking track is because of the interplay between the water, the cataquacks, as well as the use of potential shortcuts in this area. Now, let me be clear. Shortcuts come in technically two flavors. You have the shortcut on the right, the pipe cut that gets you the double item box. You have off the pier, and that lovely speed boost in the far corner there. Now, these three effective shortcuts are all there depending on what lap you're on, what place you're in, and what your needs actually are. If you need some high-end items, you're going to take the warp pipe cut, because at least you're getting some high-end items out of it. But what I want to mention here is actually the interplay between the water and the cataquacks. Because when the water recedes, the cataquacks are less dangerous. But when it goes back out, when you lose most of the track to the water, you end up getting pushed directly at the cataquacks. Meaning that, theoretically, some people actually have a safer or more dangerous trek through that half of the track. Anyways, coming in at number 6, we have Sherbet Land. Now I have to be clear, this course is coming here because this has been an itemless run. This is a track that is fantastic, it's fun, it's engaging, but it also breaks up the monotony of an itemless run a lot. See, the slippery ice physics of this track actually do a lot for this track. Because if every single track had the exact same physics on them, then it would be a no-brainer. This one would be probably somewhere much lower, somewhere around Mushroom Bridge. but the slippery physics mixed with the multiple mushroom cuts, mixed with just how this track is actually put together, to me, makes it one of the more enjoyable ones to play just in general. And I know as a kid, I had some very negative feelings toward this track. I kind of rolled my eyes when Sherbet Land came out. But to me, Sherbet Land now ends up being one of the high-end tracks as a direct result of how weird and unique this track actually is in the grand scheme of Mario Kart Double Dash's average tracks. Couple that with I am actually pretty good with the slippery physics, which, personal bias aside, definitely doesn't hurt. I think that this is a fantastic addition to Mario Kart Double Dash's roster. But if we're going into Sherbet Land with this is a high-end track because it does something weird, then every track going forward should have something unique that sells it. Be it the spectacle, be it how it interfaces with the interactions of the various items. Which means, coming up at number 5, we have Waluigi Stadium. Now, if you had to pick a single course that fits the banner of every player should try this once, Waluigi Stadium is it. It is a relatively simple track, a lot of 90-degree turns, which, not the end of the world. What I want to mention about this track actually has to do with learning to drive and use the controls. The goal of this track, in my mind, is to aim for every single one of the item boxes in the fire hoops. And the reason why I like that mentality is because it gives the player something more to interact with. It has something more that you as the player should be striving for. And with successive playthroughs, you'll get used to trying to aim for that box, which will improve your accuracy at jumps of any variety later down the line. Couple that with the fact that you have the giant wooden piranha plants, you have mud pits that slow you down and tank your acceleration, as well as multiple jumps, multiple everything, as well as some notable cuts past the piranha plants themselves, and this ends up being a really unique track as far as its end goals are concerned. And to me, ends up being one of my favorites, and has been for years. But, as great as it is, there are still 4 tracks above it. And I want to acknowledge why Waluigi ends up here. As far as I'm concerned, this one has a lot of unique features, or different features all crammed together. But this track is the same one lap after the next, with the exclusion of the giant piranha plants, which, while they do some great things and change up the flow of the track a little bit, just don't quite hit the same highs as the following tracks. Which is why, coming in at number 4, we have the antithesis to Princess Peach herself, Daisy Cruiser. Daisy Cruiser is another fantastic track, one that I might hear a little bit of question marks over, but what I want to acknowledge from this one is very blunt and simple. Daisy Cruiser is a track that has a lot of unique turns. With blind turns, you have water's edge turns, you have item alleys in this stairwell, you have the wonderful hairpin turns coming around the crew quarters at the end here. But you also have some lovely, unique circumstances that come up as a direct result of what's going on. You have Item Alley here. You have Item Alley at the end here, where another batch of item boxes shows up. All of these locations are notable because of how this track functions. The track itself sways left and right, meaning that at no moment are you ever going to have a truly balanced view of this track. As it bobs and moves, so too do the tables in the center of this open area. You have a cannon launcher from the bottom of the bay down below up to the main deck again. And while sure, it is slower than the path I'm taking, it's slower, but offers another option if you're if you get stuck in a bad situation. In my mind, Daisy Cruiser, while it lacks shortcuts or alternative pathways, ends up rocking in terms of other options available to the player throughout the duration of the track and how it plays on the idea of a racetrack on a cruise ship. And that's kind of thematic and be-all, end-all styling to the track is what makes it so entertaining to drive on. But we only hit or cracked the top 4. Coming in with the bronze medal place, we have Bowser's Castle, coming in at 3rd place. Now, this is the Bowser's Castle that I've mentioned a few times as being one of my favorite tracks ever. And part of it is just how it plays on the Bowser's minions. It plays on how Bowser's Castles in the 2D and 3D series have all been set up. Fireballs, lava bubbles, you have the fire bars because why not? You have thwomps, you have a giant statue of Bowser spitting fireballs at the player because why not? All set within a gloomy wasteland covered with lightning. This track is atmospheric, and as such, deserves the recognition as a high-end track. But more than it just being a high-end track, it has some technical locations, hairpins, it's got those nice item alleys, it has a nice jump at the end, it has 90 degrees, it has every type of turn imaginable. What it lacks, once again, is perhaps route diversity, in the fact that it only has one notable shortcut that I'm aware of. And I'm not including super shortcuts that can cut half the track off. That's not what I end up playing like. That, to me, is really high-end play for speedrunners. And we just dodged a red shell. Fantastic. But what I like that sets this track even just a little bit further apart from the other tracks around it come from the fact that there are numerous circumstances where it's easy to just drive off the track, where you could, if not paying attention, end up flying off the end simply because there was never a barrier, never an option, never a hope of protecting the player from that mistake. And that, to me, really says it all. This is Bowser's Castle. This is meant to be a challenging track. This is meant to throw the players off a cliff once or twice a minute all summer. This is the fantastic epicenter, the climactic finale of Mario Kart Double Dash. And in my opinion, it nails its it nails its goal quite well. Anywho, with that, there are only 2 tracks left. And if you're noticing, one is from Special Cup, the other from Star Cup. And I think that's quite a proper way to go. Because the first of the 4 cups to be out of tracks was Mushroom Cup. Second was Flower. And now, coming in third is the Star Cup, with the DK Mountain being the silver medal holder of the entire run. So, what's there to say about this one that hasn't been said already? Good turns? Absolutely. Item play? Fantastic. Cannons? You can't go wrong. Volcanoes, absolutely. Now, the fact is that when I last talked about this track, I mentioned a lot about how the different regions of the track all interplayed with one another. That you had the bumpy stone, the twisting cliff sides, you had the jungle at the bottom, the cannon, you had everything going for you. Out. But I think something that makes this track stand out as being just that much more unique also comes from the fact that this track does a lot right. It is probably what I would consider the first point-to-point style race. And yes, this is a lap-based race, I want to be clear. But when I was first playing it as a kid, to me, it always felt like you start at the bottom, you head to the top, and you run back to the bottom. Like, that's what it is. And so, in my head, it was a point-to-point style race where you could do one lap, all 8 players all in, let's see how this goes. And while I definitely think it could have been longer, I don't think it necessarily has the length of a proper point-to-point. It does it well enough that it doesn't bother me too much, if that makes any sense at all. But I'm probably doing the math now, at this point in time. We've done them all. Number 16 at Dry Ruins, 15 Dino Jungle, 14 Baby Park, 13 Mushroom City, 12 Luigi Circuit, 11 Mario Circuit, 10 Mushroom Bridge, 9 Yoshi Island, 8 Rainbow Road, 7 Peach Beach, 6 Sherbet Land, 5 Waluigi Stadium, 4 Daisy Cruiser, Bronze Medal Holder, Bowser Castle, Silver Medal Holder is the DK Mountain. Gold and first place, in my opinion, goes to Wario Coliseum. Now, I don't think I need to say much on this one. If you've been listening or tuning in over the last 7 times I've played this track, you'll know it's my favorite. This is not one that I could concede going any lower. And the reason behind it actually has to do much with everything that made Waluigi Stadium great, coupled with a lot of what makes a lot of the other high-end tracks great. Wario Coliseum is the only 2-lap race in the entire game, which means it's the only course that actually took pride enough to be a longer track, believing that it was going to do well. Number 2, there are numerous locations where you, the player, can fall off the edge of the track. And a lot of the earlier lessons that came up, like trying to hit a box while in Waluigi Stadium at the height of a jump, come into play here again, only this time you're jumping over a bottomless pit. These types of situations are very spectacle-y, but it also showcases just how skilled a driver is to play on and succeed on this track. Now, as a kid, I acknowledge that this was a track that I could see myself liking, but it was one that took time for me to warm up on. By the time I had the first completion of Mario Kart Double Dash under my belt, it was by far and away my favorite track in the game. Excuse me, Donkey Kong. But the thing is that by the time that everything was said and done, a lot of tracks did better or worse, in my opinion, over time. That's right, you get blue shelled. So, in my mind, this was a track that does occasionally need a little marinating. Does need time for you to get used to it. But is so satisfying once you actually make a full run of it. And It's also one of those tracks that does really well by sight playing compared to memory playing. For whatever reasons, when I'm playing on memory, oh, it's a right turn here, left turn there, I end up getting confuzzled and messed up. Think of what I mentioned with Mushroom City. But this track is one I exclusively play by sight, making it more engaging. Anywho, if you like what you see, please drop a like, leave subscribe down below. Because as of next week, we're picking up the next game in the franchise that I have access to. Mario Kart Wii. Where we'll see if it is once again possible to complete Mario Kart Wii without the use of items. This is Novaria, signing off, and I hope you all have a good one.